Hi everyone, welcome to English Rise. This is a channel for those who want to improve their English but also want to grow as individuals. Here we don't separate language from life, because how you learn, how you think, and how you discipline yourself are deeply connected. These videos are designed to help you train your English while reflecting on psychology, self-mastery, purpose, and change. If this kind of content resonates with you, consider subscribing and staying with the channel. Now take a breath, and let's begin. Part 1. The strange resistance you feel toward discipline. Discipline feels heavy, not physically, but mentally. You know what you should do. You know what would improve your life. You know what would move you forward. And yet, something inside you resists, not aggressively, quietly, a subtle delay, a need to postpone, an internal negotiation that never fully ends. This resistance is confusing, because discipline is not complex. Wake up earlier, study consistently, train your body, work even when motivation is absent. Simple actions. And still, they feel difficult. This difficulty creates a dangerous thought. If it feels this hard, maybe it's not for me. But that thought is misleading. Discipline does not feel hard because you are incapable. It feels hard because it goes against something deeply rooted in you. Part 2. Your mind was not built for discipline. Your brain evolved to seek comfort, efficiency, safety, immediate reward. Discipline threatens all three. When you choose discipline, you delay pleasure. You accept effort now for results that are invisible in the present moment. Your brain doesn't like that. It prefers what is familiar, what is easy, what produces quick relief. This is why distraction feels natural and discipline feels forced. Discipline demands conscious direction, and consciousness requires energy. Your mind is constantly scanning for ways to reduce effort. This is not weakness, it is design. But design does not mean destiny. Part 3. Why motivation always fails you. Most people wait for motivation. They believe discipline should feel inspiring, energizing, emotionally rewarding. And when it doesn't, they stop. Motivation is unstable. It depends on mood, on sleep, on emotions, on external circumstances. Discipline does not. If your progress depends on motivation, you will only move forward on good days. And life does not offer progress on good days only. Discipline feels hard because it asks you to act without emotional permission, to move even when you don't feel like it. That goes directly against how most people live. Part 4. The internal conflict that exhausts you. Every time you avoid discipline, you feel temporary relief. But relief has a cost. There is a quiet tension that builds when you repeatedly choose comfort over effort. A sense that you are not honoring your own potential. This tension doesn't disappear, it accumulates. Discipline feels hard because avoiding it feels heavy over time. You are constantly carrying unfinished intentions, promises you made to yourself and did not keep. This creates mental noise, and mental noise drains energy. The paradox is clear. Discipline feels hard in the moment, but lack of discipline feels heavy in the long term. Part 5. Why discipline exposes you to yourself. Discipline removes excuses. When you commit to consistent action, you can no longer blame lack of clarity, lack of time, or lack of opportunity. You face yourself, your limits, your resistance, your patterns of avoidance. This exposure is uncomfortable. Discipline forces honesty, and honesty is not always pleasant. Many people avoid discipline not because of the effort it requires, but because of what it reveals. And this is where the real challenge begins. Part 6. Discipline feels hard because it removes escape. Without discipline, there is always an exit. You can postpone, you can justify, You can tell yourself tomorrow will be different. Discipline closes that door. When you decide in advance what you will do and when you will do it, you remove negotiation. And negotiation is where most people hide. The mind enjoys flexibility because flexibility allows escape. Discipline replaces flexibility with commitment, and commitment feels restrictive to a mind trained to avoid pressure. This is why discipline feels suffocating at first. Not because it limits your freedom, but because it limits your excuses. Part 7. The comfort you protect is not neutral. Comfort feels harmless. Resting a little longer. Skipping one session. Choosing ease today. Each choice feels insignificant. But comfort is not neutral. It trains you. Every time you choose comfort over effort, you strengthen a pattern of retreat. Your brain learns quickly. It learns that discomfort can be avoided. That effort is optional. That delay has no immediate consequence. Discipline interrupts this learning. It introduces friction. And friction feels unnatural when comfort has become your default. Part 8. Why discipline demands identity change. At a certain point, discipline stops being about tasks. It becomes about who you are. You can force yourself for a while. You can rely on willpower temporarily. But discipline only becomes sustainable when it aligns with identity. You don't act consistently because you want results. You act consistently because this is who you are becoming. This is why discipline feels hard. It asks you to abandon an old identity before the new one fully exists. You are no longer the person who acts only when it feels good. But you are not yet the person who acts regardless of mood. That space between identities is uncomfortable. Most people retreat there. Part 9. The loneliness of disciplined paths. Discipline often separates you from habits, from environments, from people. When you choose structure, you no longer move with the crowd. You wake up earlier. You say no more often. You follow routines others find excessive. This creates distance. And distance feels like loneliness. Humans are social creatures. We fear isolation more than failure. So unconsciously, we soften our discipline to remain aligned with others. Discipline feels hard because it sometimes means standing alone with your decisions. Part 10. Why discipline feels empty at the beginning. At first, discipline offers little reward. You work, you show up, you repeat, and nothing dramatic happens. No applause, no immediate transformation, no external validation. This emptiness is dangerous because the mind asks, what's the point? But discipline is not meant to feel rewarding initially. It is meant to feel stable. The reward comes later. After repetition, after identity shifts, after momentum forms. Those who quit early mistake silence for failure. Part 11. Discipline as a form of self-respect. Eventually, discipline changes meaning. It stops being punishment. It becomes alignment. You no longer act to force improvement. You act to honor yourself. Each disciplined action becomes a quiet statement. I do what I say I will do. I don't negotiate with weakness. I don't abandon myself. This consistency builds trust. Trust between you. And that trust changes how effort feels. Part 12. Why discipline is the only way forward. There is no sustainable alternative. Motivation fades. Inspiration fluctuates. Circumstances change. Only discipline remains when conditions are imperfect. Every meaningful transformation is built on unremarkable repetitions. Unseen work. Uncelebrated effort. Days that feel ordinary. Discipline feels hard because it demands maturity. And maturity is rarely comfortable. But without discipline, progress becomes accidental. And accidental progress cannot be relied on. This is the crossroads. One path feels easier now and heavier later. The other feels heavy now and lighter over time. Discipline is not the easy path, it is the honest one. And this reflection is not finished yet, because understanding discipline is only the first step. Living it is something else entirely. Part 13. The hidden fatigue of undisciplined living. A life without discipline looks light on the surface. No strict schedules, no rigid commitments, no pressure to perform consistently. But beneath that apparent freedom, there is fatigue. Undisciplined living creates constant decision-making. Should I do it now or later? Should I rest or push a little more? Should I commit or wait? These questions repeat daily, and every decision consumes energy. Discipline removes these questions. It decides once, so you don't have to decide again. That is why disciplined people appear calmer, not because life is easier, but because their minds are quieter. Part 14. Why discipline creates internal order. Chaos is exhausting, not always externally, but internally. When your actions lack structure, your mind mirrors that lack of order. Thoughts scatter, focus weakens, intentions dissolve. Discipline introduces predictability. You know what comes next. You know what is expected of you. This predictability stabilizes the mind. That stability is not boring. It is grounding. And from that grounding, clarity emerges. Part 15. The difference between force and commitment. Many people misunderstand discipline. They associate it with force, with aggression against oneself, with harsh control. Force creates resistance. Commitment creates direction. When you force yourself, you rely on tension. When you commit, you rely on clarity. Discipline that lasts is not built on punishment. It is built on choice, a repeated, conscious choice to move forward even when resistance is present. Part 16. Discipline and the acceptance of boredom. One of the most overlooked aspects of discipline is boredom. Progress is repetitive. The same actions, the same routines, the same structure, day after day. The mind seeks novelty. Discipline demands repetition. This is why discipline feels dull. But boredom is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that the ego is no longer entertained. Beyond boredom, there is depth. And depth is where mastery grows. Part 17. Why most people quit right before it gets easier. Discipline has a delayed effect. The early phase is heavy and unrewarding. But there is a threshold, a point where routines become habits, where effort becomes automatic, where resistance softens. Most people quit just before that point, not because discipline failed, but because impatience intervened. Consistency feels pointless until it compounds. Those who persist do not have stronger motivation. They simply stayed long enough for effort to become identity. Part 18. The quiet power of showing up. There is nothing dramatic about showing up daily. No intensity, no heroic narrative. But this quiet consistency changes everything. You stop asking if you are capable. You already proved it by showing up again and again. Discipline builds self-trust not through words, but through evidence. That evidence accumulates. And slowly, the internal dialogue changes. Part 19. When discipline stops feeling like resistance. Eventually, discipline transforms. It no longer feels like pushing against yourself. It feels like alignment. You act because it feels wrong not to act. Structure becomes familiar. Routine becomes stabilizing. At this stage, discipline no longer drains energy. It preserves it. But reaching this stage requires patience. And patience is rare. Which brings us to the final layer we still need to explore. Part 20. Discipline as the foundation of freedom. There is a misunderstanding that persists for a long time. People believe discipline takes freedom away, but the opposite is true. Without discipline, your life is ruled by impulses, by moods, by distractions, by whatever feels easiest in the moment. That is not freedom, that is reaction. Discipline gives structure to your days. and structure gives direction to your life. When your actions are intentional, you stop drifting. And when you stop drifting, you begin to choose. True freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is doing what matters even when it is uncomfortable. Part 21. Why discipline always comes before clarity. Many people wait to feel certain. Certain about their purpose, certain about their path, certain about their decisions. But clarity does not come before action. It comes from it. Discipline creates movement. Movement creates feedback. Feedback creates understanding. If you wait for clarity to act, you remain stuck. If you act with discipline, clarity follows. This is why discipline feels like walking in the dark at first. You don't see the full path. You only see the next step, and that is enough. Part 22. The long-term consequence of discipline. Over time, discipline changes how you experience life. You trust yourself more. You negotiate less with weakness. You rely less on external validation. You become calmer under pressure because you know you can endure effort. You become more confident because your actions are consistent. Discipline builds a quiet strength, not visible immediately, not impressive at first glance, but unshakable. Part 23. Why there is no real substitute. There is no shortcut that replaces discipline, no system, no trick, no moment of inspiration. Everything meaningful is built on repetition, and repetition requires discipline. You can delay it, you can resist it, you can try to avoid it, but eventually every path leads back to the same truth. If you want a different life, you must become a more disciplined version of yourself. Part 24. The decision that changes everything. Discipline begins with a quiet decision. Not dramatic, not emotional. A simple decision to stop negotiating with what you already know you must do. That decision will not remove resistance, but it will remove confusion. And clarity is powerful. Once you decide, the path stops feeling optional. And when the path is no longer optional, progress becomes inevitable. Discipline feels hard because it asks you to grow up internally, to stop waiting, to stop escaping, to stop postponing your potential. But it is also the only way forward. Not because it is cruel, but because it is honest. Here at English Rise, we explore this kind of growth calmly and deeply, using English not only as a language to be learned, but as a tool for reflection, discipline, and self-mastery. If you stayed until the end, thank you for giving your time and attention. That already says something about you. And if this content resonates with where you are in life right now, consider subscribing to the channel and continuing this journey with us. Not for motivation, but for consistency. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.